All right, here we are. Happy Thursday again. Today is May 3rd. I'm super excited to have my friend Polly Bauer on. Polly drove all the way over from like the Tampa St. Pete area just to be on the show. Isn't that sweet of her? So let us know you can hear us and see us because that's so important. Polly's got an amazing message and an amazing background. I've enjoyed so much our conversation in the last 30 minutes. And just to tell you guys again, this is somebody that I've just met. Lori, let us know you can hear us or see us. Linda, you too. Because it's so important to just meet new people. Thank you, Lori. So we got a thumbs up. So welcome.
Thank you very much.
I'm so excited to have you on here. So our mutual friend Neil is in the background, and our other mutual friend Jarek is back there. And we've had seriously a great time talking and getting to know each other. So Polly, I'll let you give kind of a background on you. The title of this show is Swipe, which is taken from your podcast.
Yes.
The misconceptions about credit use, which everybody wants to know about. If you're in any industry at all that does credit, or if you're trying to buy a house, buy anything, even a car, you want to know what's going on in the world. And Polly's got an amazing story and a background, so welcome.
Thank you.
All right, so give us a little history. You told me about when you were 14, but tell us where you were about before 14, and then give us the story about how you decided or how it kind of came to you that you wanted to get into the credit business.
Well, before 14, I was a farm girl working with my grandparents on a dairy farm and learned in Ohio. Learned a lot about hard work. By the time I was a sophomore, I was completing my classes by noon every day, and the principal said, listen, you've got to get out into the corporate world. So
at 14?
At 14, because
I don't know if I can tie my shoes at 14, Polly.
You can't stay in study hall for 4 hours every afternoon. So he gave me some options to pick, and I immediately picked finance and banking.
How did you know that at 14, though? That's the part I'm always fascinated about, because people talk about their epiphany, the time where they actually felt like, oh my God, this is what I'm supposed to do. And it's always around this young age. So how did you know that finance and credit and understanding all of that was something that you wanted to do at such a young age?
Well, first of all, I liked it because we wore uniforms. And we had a beautiful lobby, and it was all marble and high-end and luxurious bank. And I thought, well, why wouldn't I want to spend my time there instead of, taking blood samples? It wasn't what I wanted to do, someone else maybe. But I truly was the right young lady at the right time, and I fell into the credit card opportunity. I got a call from the chairman saying, I want you to come to the back of this room. I want you to sweep the floor, pour coffee, sharpen pencils, keep your mouth shut. You're going to learn something today that's going to affect the way people shop in the U.S. and learn everything you possibly can. So I was so excited. You're young, you want a new opportunity,
Sure.
You see your career ahead of you.
Yes.
And within a matter of 2 days, I heard the words Bank AmeriCard. People will really walk into a store and hand someone a card and not have to pay for the meat or the clothing or the feed sacks, and then they'll get a bill at the end of the month. And I thought, oh, this can't be happening. This is great.
Which is amazing, because back in the day, you had like a credit at a store, and by a credit,
right.
You would walk in and you'd say, hey, Joe, yeah, put this on my account, and you'd pay the account at the end of the month or whenever you paid it.
Right.
This was new. This was a plastic card. That's why they refer to it as plastic.
Exactly.
And so a lot of people obviously don't remember, this generation especially, has no idea what it was like before having a credit card.
No.
And so what was the thing about it that attracted you? Because honestly, back in the day, there was so much misinformation about it. Obviously, it was because it was new too, but people didn't want to get involved in it because they had always paid cash, so it was such a foreign thing.
Well, the first thing that really caught my eye was educating the merchants, the people who were selling their product. And I helped work with some of the analyzing of data to prove to these merchants that if you sold X, but you suddenly would allow people to use a credit card as well, what would happen to your sales? And we saw potential of 30 to 40% lift.
Sure.
Now, if you're a merchant, that's a lot of money,
It's
30 to 40%. So that really intrigued me and got my eye. Yes, it was an education process of the consumers because they were thinking, am I going to go into debt? I'm not going to go into debt.
Correct.
Oh, but I'll pay it off in full in a month and I won't have to worry about it.
Because debt was different back there. You still had debt. You had mortgages.
Right.
You had
Your farm.
You had you had debt. it just wasn't tied to this funny little card
Right.
that all of a sudden gave you this buying power
Exactly.
that you didn't have before. Because if you didn't have it in the bank back then, you couldn't do it.
Right.
Or you'd have to go back to the bank and say, I need more cash in my account. And that was a loan. It was a whole different thing. Similar thought process. They figured out a way back in the day to go, all right, so we're going to make this easy for the as easy as possible for the consumer and the merchant. But did you foresee, I'm fascinated because back in the day, now that you've had experience, did you foresee what that would do to overspending? And what was the thought process back then? Was there anything that people said, oh my God, I'm so afraid to do this because I'm afraid I'm going to overextend myself? These are all words that we've learned in my generation.
Exactly.
But back in the day, I know my parents had no credit cards at all early on.
I don't think overspending really came into the minds of the consumers. The consumers came into, how can I buy the grain and the feed to take care of my animals, and I'm going to be taking them to a slaughterhouse. There was no other way to say it.
Right.
Within this amount of time, and I can pay it off in full. So it was kind of a bridge loan, and they looked at it.
That's
business
exactly
people
what it was
looked at
originally
it.
set up, right? It was a
Exactly.
bridge loan. People didn't really think about how they were going to charge it. They thought back
Right.
in the day they were going to pay it off at the end of the month.
Absolutely.
And so this whole process then started to transition. Well, now I can get a bigger amount, I can spend more, buy more, and guess what? Now I don't have to pay it off at the end of the month. I can pay a smaller payment, get a whole bunch of stuff I want. And did that occur naturally, or was that part of what the credit card industry was doing back then?
I think it was an expansion of the brand. The brand wanted to make sure that the brand was known, and of course Bank Americard became Visa, and Visa was the only card for many years, and then along came Master Charge.
Yeah, Master Charge,
Before
I
it was
remember.
MasterCard.
Yeah.
People don't realize the oldest card ever in history is American Express.
Oh, I didn't realize that either.
Oh, yes, it was around for years and years, mainly for dining and entertainment. But when the cards first came out, they were more to help the farmers, help consumers, give you a way to pay. A majority of the people paid off in full. And then, of course, any brand manager in marketing is going to look at how can we get out more cards?
Absolutely.
How can we do more things?
Right.
And then fast forward into my college days, where almost every corner at the university had
Something I tell you about. People don't call me during the show. I love you.
there was a stand where people were saying, oh, well, you're a student, you don't have an income, you don't have a job. Well, that's okay, you're here, you're paying your tuition, let me give you a card. That's where we started to turn a little south.
So was it because I want to ask, weren't there department stores that got into this too? So there was this overall Visa Master Charge, American Express, and then all of a sudden smaller industries, smaller department stores, maybe even if they were national or regional, said, you know what, we can also offer our own.
Right, yes.
And so what was the thought process there? They could get people to purchase more, but they were also making money.
Exactly.
But that was a new thing. Like you had a Nordstrom's card, or you had, especially if you're from the Northeast, you had a lot of different cards that were city related. So if you went into the city, you bought something from Macy's or Bloomies, yeah.
Right.
And so, but that was a new thing. But what it did is it opened up a market to a whole new group of consumers.
Exactly. And it served the purpose. The purpose was for a department store to have a VIP brand.
That's
so
right.
that it could only be used in that store. Even though you had your Master Charge and you had your Visa, the private brand could only be used in your store. You got special notices of sales, the people who didn't have the card. You got special rates and special gifts with purchase. You got notice when certain clothing lines came into the store that other people didn't know. So it became prestige.
Sure.
It became luxury and prestige.
Which is what we all want, or at least that's what everybody created back then. Everybody now you're creating this prestige thing. It's just like if you have an event and you say now you're on the waiting list, well, everybody wants to be on the waiting list, and then everybody wants to get in. So you're creating this whole new environment. How was the interest rate back then?
Oh, the interest rates weren't bad at that point in time. And, interest rates, even to this day, they're driven off your credit score. So people keep saying...
I don't think people realize that.
Oh.
So they're driven off your credit score. Because a lot of people...
Absolutely.
But you have credit cards like American Express charges, I don't know, XYZ. And then, well, if you pay it off every month, you don't really pay anything.
You'll pay
depending on your...
right.
But you have an annual credit card fee. I know they make some money off of that. But they also depend... Don't most credit card companies depend on the fact that you're not going to pay it off?
Well, actually, the issuing bank, when you talk to about MasterCard and Visa, the issuing bank is who is issuing that line of credit to you, not MasterCard and Visa, who are the brands. And they have to bank on a certain percentage of the people are going to revolve, and a certain percentage are going to pay it in free. I use my dad as an example. You know, Dad carried these platinum cards, and he'd make a purchase today, and he'd write the check next Monday to pay it off before the bill
Sure.
came. And I finally taught him, which he didn't like it, but I finally taught him, Dad, this is how to use the bank's money.
Correct.
You list on the back, on a little document for you, when every single card is going to change in statement. You keep that statement date. When you go to pull out a card, think of what day it is. Pull out a card that just turned over 2 days ago, not
Love
one
it.
that's going to turn over 2 days from now,
Right.
and use the bank's money for 45 days.
Correct.
You're going to pay it in full anyway. What makes the difference?
Correct.
So, but as far as the bank was concerned, yes, he had good accounts there. Yes, they've known him for years. Yes, he was an extremely successful businessman. But I don't think the bank made a dime off of him. You know, it was the people that were revolving.
Correct. The
that were
revolving
paying,
is where
right?
they make the money.
Exactly.
So when did the credit bureaus come into effect? Because we have the three top ones are Equifax, TransUnion, and Experian, right?
Right.
So that's been such a challenge. I mean, you can ask any consumer, or really pretty much anybody in business that runs credit. It's a challenge to work with them, but that's not necessarily been around forever.
It has. Well, there was a form of people would, you know, who else did you have credit lines with? I had the butcher, and I had the flour mill, and I
Correct.
had whatever. So they'd pick up the phones and call them. Did he pay on time? Was there a problem? So there was a form of credit bureau still from the 60s, but the big three really came heavily into the 70s.
And what was the catalyst for that?
More and more people wanting credit, more and more people asking for information. Now, if you understand, if you're in the insurance industry and you're quoting somebody insurance and you go in to look at their credit bureau score and their credit bureau score is smaller than it should be, then you can raise that rate
Right.
because you're saying, oh, I have a higher risk that they're not going to make that minimum.
That's
So
right.
when I talk to people about don't put your head in the sand, look at your credit score. You know, nobody's going to eat you. It's going to be fine. No matter what it is, you can fix it. But
Is
don't
that really
be afraid
true?
of it.
Because I think so. So when I posted that you were going to be on the show this week, a lot of people reached out to me and said, "Listen, I can't get out of my 400 credit score. I don't know what to do. I know I made some mistakes, Ted, but I feel like there's a big stigma out there, and there's a lot of. We talked about this earlier. There's a lot of charlatans out there." Meaning people who say, I can do credit repair, and as a mortgage guy, I know that the majority of them cannot do credit repair, or if they could, they're not doing it in a right way. So people are afraid. They're afraid of the three credit bureaus. They're afraid to run their own credit. They have Credit Karma, and sometimes that does not match what a mortgage guy runs or a car person runs. And so what do people do? How can they get out of the... they feel like they're deep in and there's no way for them to get out.
First of all, it's education, education, education.
I believe you.
So if you listen to some of our swipe shows, we talk about also in our book, Credit Intelligence, we tell you what steps to take. The first
Okay, we haven't talked about that, so let's talk about Swipe and your book.
And my book.
We're talking
It's-
generics here, but generic stuff. But I want to know more about what you do, so I need to lead into that. Thank you for helping me.
You are welcome. We have a Swipe Show, which is our podcast. We have 42 shows that are up. They're different
Awesome.
subjects. There are some tips in there, and we're going to be putting up more tips of the day soon of things people can do. If your focus is that you need to raise your credit score, you have to know what it is. So it's time to say, wait a minute, this is my money. It's coming out of my pocket. I'm afraid of these three bureaus.
It's true. People are
Look at
afraid.
it. Look at it and see what's there.
So have a cocktail.
I don't
Get
know
your
what that
three.
part
No,
is.
that's mine. That's not Polly. Do whatever you need to do, but get ready and then print the three out because it's very hard to look at all three on the computer.
Exactly.
So I tell people print it out. You can't read all three of those if you don't have them. I want to touch it. I want to feel it. I
Sure.
like to turn the page on a book. If you can't look at it all at once, you've got the 3 credit reports there, you go through it, and it can be scary. If you're looking at a 400 credit score, I'm going super low, but let's say that's it, then it can be overwhelming.
Right.
But you can still get out of it. You just have to you have to start with, I want to get out of it, right?
Absolutely.
You can't just go, okay, well, this is my credit score, here we go. John Wild said, I looked up my credit score, you lost. We're going to help you out, John, I promise. But what can they do? So they take a look at it.
First of all, take one bureau at a time.
I like that.
And I want you to have this word that sticks in your mind. It's called zombie debt. People in the United States have totally ignored what zombie debt is. Zombie debt may be a debt that you had after college or maybe between a marriage that you paid off and you took a few cents on the dollar to pay off that debt. Let's say it was with Citicorp, and I love Citicorp, I love them all, so I'm not one against another. It was with Citicorp, and you decided that you would take a payoff. And you know at the end of the year, you got a 1099, and you're like, are you kidding me? I have to pay the government on the money that they wrote off, which was mainly interest? Yeah, I'm afraid that's the way that goes. So, all right, now, you paid that bill off, and it says Citicorp, and you know what it was, and you have a settlement, and you have a letter. Always get a letter if you've paid it off that said this has been taken care of. Well, you don't look at your credit bureau because you're afraid. And then about 3 months later, there are organizations that we're trying to put out of business that are going in and buying up the rest of that debt that was already forgiven.
Yep.
It's called zombie debt. And they're issuing it to under another bank name, under a different ID number to go on the bureau. So boom, back on the bureau comes that debt. You don't know what it is, but if you don't look at your yeah. If you don't look at your bureau, you don't know what it is. And also in Credit Intelligence Plus, you can go online to the credit bureaus and it'll tell you how to dispute something you do not recognize. Now, I've had people say to me, Polly, I've disputed and disputed. Well, yeah, you may need to get somebody to help you. I'm not telling you to go to a collector. I am not telling you to get somebody that's going to make it all magical and put fairy dust on it, because that's not going to happen. I'm also going to tell you, I'm a farm girl, so if you don't put your work in yourself and you don't dig down in the dirt, that's your name. It's your money. Why would you give that control to somebody else?
People.
That's it.
Get your hands dirty.
So now you've realized you've got zombie debt. Now you're going to dispute that zombie debt. You've got 30 days to answer you back and tell you, well, no, we don't recognize that debt. You don't recognize that debt. They have to take it off your credit bureau.
Correct.
But mysteriously, does it come back on sometimes in 2 weeks? You betcha.
That's why you have to be so vigilant
Exactly.
about checking it all the time. But what a lot of people go is, well, I don't know if Credit Karma allows you to check it all the time, but it costs money.
So
right?
it cost me $7 for somebody to drive my APR up to 24%. Do the numbers.
APR, which is annual percentage rate.
So if I have to pay a higher amount on a card, or my car insurance, or my mortgage, or my child's braces, because my credit score is, hello, come on.
So what's the biggest mistake that what's the biggest misconception, or the top 3, or whatever you want to share, because that's the title of the show. And I think people do have a misconception about credit all the time. They think, oh my God, I want to keep it just $25 underneath the limit, or it's okay if it's $50 over the limit. And there are so many things that people do that are wrong. Mm-hmm. They also pay off the wrong accounts. I see that on the mortgage side all the time. Or they pay them down, and I'm like, why did you pay that down? Why didn't you talk to somebody and let's figure it out together? Because there are ways to do it that make an actual positive impact.
Absolutely.
And you as a consumer don't know those. You're not supposed to know those. You need to go to a professional and talk to somebody who knows that stuff. So what are some of the misconceptions?
Well, first of all, just because it's on sale at Kohl's or Bell's or Dillard's, and the young lady behind the desk says, well, if you apply for this card today, I'll give you 20% off of this purchase, and then you just go home and pay it off and cut it in half. When you have applied for that store card, you've just driven your credit score down. Trust me,
hear that?
It's not worth the 20% you're going to get on the dress that's already on sale.
Yes, don't go to Hooters and get your Hooters card.
Okay.
Don't get your Bell's card. Don't get your Steinmart card.
Well, you can get it, but get it and
but
use
know
your
what you're
head
doing,
and think about it.
right?
Exactly.
Because that's what happens. People don't realize. They think, oh, this is a deal. I obviously have good credit, or they
Right.
think they do, and they don't realize that it's going to impact them negatively.
Exactly. The second thing is quit moving from card to card to card. Oh,
I
here's a
love
better
this.
deal. I can do this one for 6 months for no interest. I'll just move my full interest over here. Oh, no, it's 6 months. I'll move it over. Every single one of those go on your record as to cards that you've applied for.
Correct.
And one of the ones I love to share with everybody is just like you keep your oldest friends your best friends, if you're going to downsize, get rid of some of your cards, keep your oldest cards close to you, because those may not be the highest credit limit right now, but if you've got them paid off in zero, it doesn't matter. And your oldest cards give you the strongest
Because they're
credit
looking for
ratings.
experience, right?
Exactly.
They're looking for the length of time that you've had
History.
the credit. Yeah, the history. That's interesting to me, though, because I think a lot of people would say, well, if it's only got a $500 credit, I'm going to cut it off instead of the new one that has a $10,000 credit. But that's not necessarily the best place for them to
Right.
be.
And, a lot of people will call me and say, okay, Polly, I'm going to cut up all my cards. I have absolutely no cards. I said, let me tell you what. You have a safety deposit box. Put one card in that safety deposit box. We had an experience with our family not many years ago that we lost multiple family members in 1 year. And luckily, we had folks that said, oh my gosh, that's my mom. I'll just go ahead and put the burial arrangements on the card. I have the information. I always keep a card. I don't keep a card for an emergency, but I keep a card to be able to respond if something happens. So if you want to lock all your cards up, pay cash for a year, you can go on to Swipe the Podcast, listen to one of the shows we did with Greg Cole, where he made everybody in the family put away their cards. They lived on cash for a year, and he paid off $15,000 in credit card debt. Was it hard? He was a school teacher. Absolutely, it was
That
difficult.
is so hard, and I think people are just so used. It's because our culture, we have this immediate gratification
Right.
need.
Right.
So if I want it, I'm going to go get it, and the only way to get it is to have the credit card in order to do it, because I don't have the cash in the bank.
Right.
But I'm going to make the minimum payment of $25 a month until I'm 950 years old, and that's how it's all going to work. But but people don't realize the impact and the ramifications of that.
Always, always, always make more than the minimum payment. If it's $10, if it's $5, always make more than the minimum payment. I can tell you with Capital One now, who's been great for folks who have lost a lot of credit in their life and needed to get reestablished. It's a wonderful card. It's got great benefits to it, benefits that people use. I fly a lot, so I use frequent flyer miles.
Nice.
My parents had frequent flyer miles they didn't use. They didn't revolve, so they didn't have to worry about some of those fees. But when you get a card and you decide, now I did announce this morning that Alexa now can go out and find a card for you.
Alexa can?
Oh, you betcha.
I love her.
Yes, and
She's sassy.
She is amazing. Now you can tell Alexa, go find a card. You will get a call, and there'll be some information that they'll ask you questions to find the best card to fit you.
Now, what if you have a low credit score, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you've either, maybe you don't have any credit cards left, or you've got some, and you've still got let's say 500. We'll use that.
Okay.
Are there cards that people can utilize that will help them rebuild their credit?
Any credit card, not a debit card, any credit card helps you build your credit numbers up. In a debit card, it's coming either directly out of the card or it's coming directly out of your checking or savings account.
Correct.
In a credit card, it's a line of credit and it's showing that you pay, and that's driving your score. But go back to what we talked about. Number one, look at your bureau, decide what you're going to do, pull one aside at a time. If you can't read it, you can go online. There's instructions there. If I don't know, I want to order them. They're $7 a piece, for heaven's sakes. Order each one. If you've been turned down for credit, you get a credit bureau free. You'll get a copy free. You can ask for it free.
That's
but
good.
If you haven't been turned down for credit, then look at all three of them. You can't fix it if you don't know what it is. Then slowly go down the list first and say, do I recognize everything on here? Are these things I really did? How many years have these been on here? Dispute what is not yours, and that will go into a pending to start. And then look at, and I do this with my high school students that I teach, take all the debt you have, list it by the highest APR, the highest interest rate, pay those off first. When you get those paid off, take that payment and put it on the next one down, and you'll be shocked at how fast. Like people who pay mortgage twice a month.
Yes.
Oh, It's amazing what happens, isn't it?
It goes by, it really does go
It does
by
go
fast.
by fast, yeah.
But the thing is that what Polly's saying is take control of it. So
You bet.
I know you want to bury your head in the sand. I know it's uncomfortable. It feels bad. You feel bad about yourself. That's what people tell me all the time. I just don't want to look at it, Ted. I know it's horrible. I know it feels overwhelming to them. But here's the thing. You've got to start somewhere. So print them off. Now, what's your recommendation or what are your thought process on all of the quote-unquote credit repair companies, the credit repair services? I mean, there has to be some, I know for a fact, because I have some friends that are in it, there are some legitimate people out there, but like we talked about earlier, there's so many people that are giving out misinformation. How do you maneuver through that? How do you get to the right person?
Well, there are legitimate agencies there. You can still go to consumer credit counseling, and they will give you some free advice. Don't jump quickly because you're overwhelmed to go to a collection agency. Look to see what you've got. Do some research. Decide what's next, and maybe get some financial advice before you jump quickly to go, well, I'll just pay somebody and they'll fix it for me.
Let me ask you about the pay part, because is it true that the credit repair companies can't charge up front a fee? They can charge per what they do. Like and I don't know if you know this, but I keep hearing it out there that if you are being asked for $250 before they'll even look at your file, that may not be the place you want to be.
Yeah, that's not appropriate.
I feel like you really need to do your research. You brought up a great point, consumer credit, but you can also go to any bureau that rates these people, and it's so important for you to look because it's going to sound really good, and if you're in a desperate mode, which is what a lot of people feel, again, it's back to the overwhelmed. They don't know what to do. And if they feel that, then they're going to jump on the first person that might say the right thing or the right trigger. And that's not what you want to do. You want to do your research. You want to make sure it's a legit company. Look at the reviews and then go to the real reviews, the bureaus that review businesses. I think it's super important to look at the complaints because I think you'll find the information's out there. Just like you Google everything else, check out the people that you do business with, especially when it comes to your credit, your life. And if you're really trying to turn it around, you want to listen to Swipe the podcast. You want to listen to what Polly has to say because she's got some great words of wisdom. And then talk about your book a little bit.
So I have a book with a co-author who was a senior executive at MasterCard, and we wrote a book together as two female shoppers with black belt in shopping and credit background called Credit Intelligence, How to Stay Credit Savvy.
I like it.
And there's personal stories about us shopping and some of the things we've run into in every chapter. There's a list of things for you to look at, bullet points. Some information about today, what you need to know today about credit. There's some exercises in there. There is direction to tell you how to go to agencies, and that's on Audible if you're on a really tight budget and you want to be able to do it that way. Also, I will tell you that I made my mind up that the last 20 years of my life that I was dedicating my time to not only my consulting business, but also to Swipe the podcast. And it is 9 to 30 minutes. It comes out twice a month, and we have 44 shows already up, and they're credit information. You can't get it in high school. You can't get it in college. Nobody teaches it. I teach it at the universities when there's some openings for me to do that. Parents have come to me and said, how do I get this information for my kid? I said, give him 30 minutes, put his headsets up.
Yep.
It doesn't cost
we
you
don't talk
anything.
about it.
It doesn't cost you anything.
So we're going to share all of Polly's contact information, her Swipe podcast link, her book link, Audible link, everything like that. Because I think I honestly believe what you're doing is so important. Most of us are scared to even talk about credit, and then to dive into our own, it is a challenge. Yes. And it's a challenge to read it. So anybody out there who thinks that they're not smart because they can't understand that credit report, don't feel that way, because it is overwhelming, and honestly, I believe sometimes it feels like it's confusing by design. Mm-hmm. So you have to really maneuver through it and have somebody help you. Have them look through it with you. Watch or listen to Polly's podcast, Swipe the podcast. Read her book. Go on and do your own research. That's what we're trying to encourage you to do, because you're in control of that. You really are. So any parting words of wisdom for them, Polly?
Yes. If you learn nothing else today, I want you to remember from Polly, we had coffee together, And the one thing I want you to get real clear is you are more than your credit score. People get so down, so blue, so guilty. They take it personally that who they are as a fabulous human being making a difference on this planet is totally controlled out of guilt from a number in an agency that just gets downloaded when the computers spit out paper. So think about that. You're more than your credit score. That's not who you are. Who you are has so much more to offer the world. So don't take that personally, even though it's a very personal, tough thing.
Sure.
Remember, you are a value, and your value is worth all the credit in the world.
There it is. You're more than your credit score. I appreciate you. You were amazing. I knew you would be. Neil's who's sort of filming something. I don't know where Jarek went. It's awesome to sit with somebody who has that much passion and love for people, and obviously you're doing what your passion is, and you have real information, so it's not just fly by the seat of your pants kind of stuff. So we're going to post all of Swipe the podcast and Polly's information and her book link after the show. Thank you so much for being on the show. Thank you for driving over. You were awesome. There's so much more. Go look at what she's doing. You guys, again, she said, don't feel bad. You're more than that. But I think a lot of us get caught up in that and we feel guilty. We don't talk about it. We put our head down when credit scores come up or people are buying new things. Trust me, we all, across every single socioeconomic level, we all have some credit issues, or we've had them in the past. So we all have felt it or feel it. So don't feel bad.
You know, we have a private Facebook group called Swipe the Podcast on Facebook. It's private. You can go in to click to join. Our team will go in and accept you, and you can ask us questions. You can put questions up that we'll answer on the podcast. People will help you. We're there for you. So there's 600 of us, and we're pretty close, and we care about each other.
That's amazing. All right, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Appreciate
Thanks,
it.
sweetheart.
Thank you. We love you guys. Till next time. See you tomorrow.